So we're back with the individual level test. This is where the last remaining trainees will get a chance to showcase their talents in the second leg of this journey. So last week we got two shocking results with Sodai and Miraku not getting their first cubes, and the show made sure to remind you of it in the opening previews. But beyond that, we just get right into the performances. So first up is Kawashima Seita singing Stray Kids Case 143. And interesting thing is he was chosen as the best person to confide in other trainees. And JYP would later speculate that this has to do with his ability to keep his mouth shut about things and just like uh, keep their confidence in him while he's, I guess, being confided in. But he has trouble with his practice because he's envious and worried about the skill gap between him and others. So this caused him some anxiety. The trainer basically talked to him and said that the issue with him is that he is energetic, but he just needs to be more confident. And so that's basically the gist of what happened in his package here. Now, in my opinion, he had good moves and expressions at the beginning. His voice was okay. I didn't have a problem with it. And I was actually impressed with some of the voice change-ups he did. Like, he almost sounded kind of like a different person sometimes. But I did notice that near the end of the performance, it started to drag a bit, and maybe just because there was not a lot happening. And so he was kind of just keeping up a consistent pace. And for me, at that point, it did feel like the performance was a little long. But I am also super tired, like even right now. And throughout the next three performances by the other trainees, I would actually start to doze off near the end of the performance. So it could be that my mind is wandering. Like I'm actually even struggling to keep some of the words straight right now. So I am pretty tired, but I did see that part of it. Now JYP, he said that parts that he thought was lacking in him was still there, such as an unstable voice, and he had a loss of breath. And he was holding his breath, according to JRP, because he's nervous. And he needs to relax more. And so he said that these habits kind of need to be, I guess, quarantined from his singing. But other than that, his dancing was mostly good and improved. And because of that, he got a cube. And so I was kind of surprised that he got a cube. Just because the majority of JYP's feedback seemed to be slightly negative. But I guess because he's a model and he looks good, I think his visuals kind of elevate him above certain levels of being at risk out of elimination. But then we get to the next guy, and it's Ito Eiji. Ito Eiji has been remarked as being kind of like Rain. And I'm not really sure where that's coming from, but he performs a song by Rain called How to Run from the Sun. JYP at this point is basically just worried about his vocals. The trainers, gave him harsh criticism on needing to work on his emotional expression. And at this point, he confides in the, I guess, cameraman that he's struggling with humbling himself in order to get advice from the other trainees. But then he managed to go to Haru for help. And that's interesting because at some point, and I've harped on this several times, that I thought that Haru and Eiji had issues with each other, but it turns out they're fine now. And so I already said that the last time. I already accepted that I was wrong about that, but I just thought it was interesting how I'm just getting like continuing evidence that they're fine, they're okay. Now he gets to his performance, and I thought the movement and the pace of the switch ups he was doing during his dance was actually pretty good. And then his vocal, it was okay in the beginning, but I did notice that while he was rapping, he seemed short of breath, which I guess is understandable because he's rapping really quickly, and he's just not used to it, I guess. Now JYP, his opinion is that his singing improved, his dancing was already good, but when he sang with emotion, he says that his dance suffered. And so I didn't notice that personally, but JYP still thought he was good enough to get a cube. And so JYP gave him kind of a mixed review there. Now the next guy up is the longest training trainee is Fujimaki Taiga, doing the Stray Kids Miro song. Uh, Basically, JYP says that he for this song he has to prove what's so special about him. And he ended up just having to train hard in order to avoid having regrets. So in practice, it seems like the trainer is remarking that he's a little bit too fast and he's kind of rushing through his song there. And that's basically the gist of his practice. Other than that, it just says, I just gotta brute force practice until I get it right. Which, in my opinion, isn't the right way to practice. Like, I feel like he should have gotten advice or talked to others. I think that would have benefited him more. But anyways, I thought his performance was okay, but it was disconnected for me. Like, his rap was actually pretty good, though. The dance could have been better, and I did notice at some point it seemed low effort, and I don't know what that is. It's kind of a subtlety in his movements, or even in the changing of his face expressions. It seems weak and uncommitted, and that's kind of how it felt to me. Now, when JYP commented on it, he said he was biased in favor of him due to his long-time training, but his previous weaknesses from earlier challenges did resurface. And so JYP was saying he can't see his dance lines. He should have done many moves faster, which I think lines up with what I said about him being slightly low effort. And he also said his singing hasn't improved. Now, I didn't really notice that part. I thought it was okay. I thought his rap was pretty good. But then he didn't get a cube, and so unfortunately, that's Tiger falling behind again. And basically, it's showing that his progress that JYP thought he was making may have been a fluke, or just somehow even undone, just because he's so in his head about the process. Now, the last person up is Tomoya, he's kind of proving to be kind of the MVP behind the scenes in terms of like most valuable person to be the leader. And so he's singing a JYP song, "Who's Your Mama?" and he's doing his own version. In practice, the vocal trainer was saying his vocal energy isn't quite coming through, and that he was off rhythm. And the dance trainer also said for him to be more bouncy. And so his basic homework was just to study JYP's groove and just trying to get that groove back. Now, in my opinion, I thought he had really good moves, solid voice. I didn't really have any negatives about him. I just noticed that it kept the same pace throughout the whole song, and so he had this kind of like, he just had a really good performance, to be honest. And so I didn't really think that he was going to get any negatives said about him at all. When it came to JYP's opinion, he said this wasn't an audition, it was a concert, and he got a cube. And he said his basic skills were extraordinary, and basically, moving forward, he just continued to refine those fundamental skills. Now, when you hear this, you imagine that's a top 1 ranking performance. And even for me, I had no negatives to say about him. That should be a top ranking number 1 performance. But when you get to the rankings, you find that in the first and second place is you, who's my top guy, by the way. He's my favorite guy. But did I think that his performance here was better than Tomoya's? I'm not sure that's the case. I thought Tomoya's version of "Who's Your Mama" was pretty flawless. Now he had a lot of highs, and maybe that's the difference. Maybe you reached a little bit higher, and even though everything didn't hit, because he reached higher, he was able to elevate it above Tomoya's kind of more consistent level of high quality. And so I guess that's the only way I can really like rationalize it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. JYP ranked them all, and in the end, Miraku, Sadai, and Taiga were the only ones who didn't get cubes. Everyone else got a cube. And they were ranked in an interesting way, actually. I was surprised that Yuki got 6. I thought Yuki would be way more up there, as well as Yuhi. Then Ken got a really high grade as well. And I didn't know that his was that good to be up there. But I think that maybe the reason it is up there is because if I look at my notes here, I remarked that his expressions were kind of on and off, and I noticed that vocally he was getting tired a bit near the end. But his dance was ultimately okay, so I guess I just disagree that he was a number 3 performer. But that's pretty much it. There's not a lot to say about it. This was a very a simple show. It was like four people dancing. They didn't really show much except for previews of them doing team performances. That's actually what I'm really looking forward to, because when you watch all the performers perform, and there used to be 20 contestants on the show. Now there's only 12. But when you watch them individually, the show feels longer in terms of the gap between each episode. And so I actually I personally kind of forget how each episode went when they're performing individually. But when they're doing it in groups, it's actually way more exciting. You get to see more of them, like how they interact with each other, how they're going to be as a team. Like all this stuff is way more interesting in a group. Also, I feel like it elevates their performance when they're working together. Just because, at least for the first group performances that we saw, you had a JYP trainee leading each team. But now, I don't know who's going to be leading this time, but look forward to it. I think it's going to be better. Like, it's always better when they're performing as a group, I feel. But yeah, I guess that's it. This was a pretty short review. I don't know how I managed that, but I guess not a lot happened in this episode. So, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like it, give it a thumbs down. I think I could have commented way more, but I was actually tired and dozing off at the end of each person's performance. And like I would just like realize that my eyes would just be closed, even though like the song would be playing. And so I just missed about like 5 seconds of the end of each song. So I didn't miss too much. I don't think. But yeah, I think I still, in the end, everything I mentioned lined up with stuff like JYP would say about it. Although I did have a bigger problem with some of the performance than he did. I had more negatives. But anyways, I guess that's it. If you like this, if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing, and I'll catch you in the next video.